Aka na recording ha.
Yan na po, magpe-Facebook Live na po.
Hi! Good evening everyone! Good evening po sa inyong lahat, to our friends and families here in Singapore and back in the Philippines and those all over the world who are joining us tonight. We hope everyone is staying healthy and keeping safe. I am Minerva Lau, your moderator today and member of the Philippine Bayanihan Society, Singapore. On behalf of my fellow directors, I welcome you to our 7th Bayanihan Talks webinar series. Tonight, we shall learn about the cybersecurity issues very rampant right now, not just here in Singapore, not just in the Philippines, but all over the world. Just yesterday, in the Straits Times, we saw a news report saying that $1.2 million were spent just on scams. So this is a good time to learn more about the scams. But before that, allow me to share with you what we do at Bayanihan Society and at Bayanihan Center. So we have a Bayanihan Center, a 4-story building located at 43 Pasir Panjang Road, just opposite the Maple Tree Business Center. It was officially inaugurated in August 2001, and that makes us 19 years old, by then Philippine Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. It is a recognized volunteer welfare organization and a member of the National Council of Social Services here in Singapore. Our main objective is to promote the advancement of education and skills, and to provide a venue for conduct of education, training, personal development programs for Filipinos and friends of Filipinos in Singapore. Currently, the center has been available primarily to conduct vocational training courses for Filipinos and secondarily to hold social and cultural events. Bayanihan Center is the home to Filipino overseas workers in Singapore, also called FAOs, which offers courses such as nursing aid, international cuisine, basic and advanced baking, hotel and restaurant management, aromatherapy, cosmetology, tailoring, dressmaking, and many others. It is also the home to Ateneo LSE program, which is Leadership and Social Entrepreneurship Program. We also have meeting rooms, a tambayan room, and a state-of-the-art photo studio at Bayanihan Center. Please make use of that photo studio where you can take portraits of yourself and your families and friends. Also, we host some Filipino organizations in the city by providing letter boxes. So if you are interested, please inquire with our ladies at the Bayanihan Center. Also, for those who have been with us for a while, who have been joining us in our activities, they know that we are the team behind this Bayanihan Walk, that annual fundraising walk for fun, which we started in 2015. Also, last year, we held Bayanihan Lecture, and a second one is coming soon within this month, before the end of the month. And this webinar itself started as the Bayanihan Talks series, which we had from September 2018. But because of COVID-19, as you know, it's all online. So yes, so that's basically what we do and what we have at the moment at the Bayanihan Center. I hope you have a good picture of what the society does and offer. So at least if you know something about that. And now, before you get bored, we will now proceed with the big issue that we have today about cybersecurity. Allow me to introduce our distinguished guest speaker. Our guest speaker is Mr. Roland Oscuro, who is Senior Vice President and the Chief Information Security Officer of Philippine National Bank back in Manila. He is also the head of its Enterprise Information Security Group. Before joining the bank, Mr. Oscuro held positions in various corporations, such as Multimedia Telephony, Ediserve Corporation, Sterling Tobacco Corporation, Zero Datasoft, Metal Industries Research and Development Center, and Pacific Office Machines. Oh, that's a He obtained his Bachelor of Science degree in Electronics and Communications Engineering, ECE, from the Mapua Institute of Technology. So from those in the summer group, you've got the co-alumni here. He is also an ECE board passer, but of course, and an ISCA Certified Information Security Manager, CISM. Mr. Oscuro has 34 years of experience in information technology. Wow. With the last 3 years focused on information security and cyber security. So we really have an expert here. So hopefully you will enjoy and learn a lot from him. So without further ado, here we are, Mr. Roland Oscuro. Take the floor, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening to my kababayans in Singapore. Good evening to my kababayans here in the Philippines, and also good evening to our guests. Uh, First of all, I would like to thank the Philippine Bayanihan Society of Singapore for inviting me, and it's really a privilege, to have this session and to be able to share with you my knowledge and in terms of cybersecurity, and also maybe help each other to be educated on current threats in terms of fraud and scams that have been going around, particularly during this pandemic. So without further ado, let's go on to the session. Okay. Okay. So this will be our agenda for tonight. I would be giving you some definitions, some of the terms that I would be using throughout this webinar, so that we will have a common understanding in terms of some of the terms that I'll be using. But as we go along, I also be introducing some terms, and I'll try to give you some explanation for clarification as with regards to those technical terms. Then we will immediately go to the common cyber fraud and scam that we have been experiencing. It seems it's common now, not just here in the Philippines, but also other countries are experiencing the same. I had a practice session with the Bayanihan Society of Singapore last night, and I've learned that they're also experiencing the same things that we are seeing here in Manila. Then I'll do a breakdown of a cyber scam, in particular, two recent event or two recent incident that was reported by customer of a bank. Then I'll give you some tips in terms of how we can protect ourselves from this cyber scam and this cyber fraud. Then we'll be having a question and answer, and I would encourage everyone to ask their questions. Just remember, there are no wrong question. There might be wrong answer, but definitely there will never be a wrong question. So please, I would encourage everyone to pose and ask your question. Okay, so we will now proceed. Okay, in terms of definition, so that we'll have a common understanding. You would normally hear the term cybersecurity and information security, and most of the time these two terms are interchangeable. When you read it off the internet, some website uses cybersecurity, some website uses information security, but they are actually discussing cybersecurity. So what is the main difference between the two? Well, cybersecurity primarily deals with the defense of cyber attack on installation, equipment, and information that is being used in the cyberspace. So technically, cybersecurity deals with digital information and also equipment or communication and technology that are used to run cyberspace. Then what about information security? Information security also deal with digital information. The biggest difference between cybersecurity and information security. Information security also deals with analog security. So what do we mean by analog security? These are your printed documents that contain information that may be confidential or critical, or contain information that is under the scope of the data privacy law. So these are your personal identifiable information. So that is their biggest difference. Information security is inclusive of analog printed document or hard copy, while cybersecurity primarily deals with digitalized or digital information. Then phishing. Phishing. So what is phishing? This is a word that you've been hearing almost every day. There are multiple types of phishing. The more popular one are actually email phishing. They are basically scam email or email that is intended to do two things. One is to convince you to share or to give information, and mostly these are confidential information. Another objective of a phishing email is to be able to convince you to perform something so that it will be able to install something in your computer or in your company's network. Uh, so who are the people who create this phishing email? Well, basically, these are people who are after your money. And we've been hearing that there are phishing campaign being done by the North Koreans, by the Russians. Everyone is doing phishing now because it's a very lucrative business. So why do they do phishing? Well, primarily to get money, to get money from people, to get information from people so that they can extort money from people. As I mentioned earlier, there are multiple types of phishing, and the common one that you see are actually those that are done through email. But there's also SMS phishing or smishing. Again, the objective is to convince you to share or give information or to convince you to do something. And there's also phishing using instant messages and even social media. So phishing is almost everywhere. And according to a study, 53% of emails that are getting through in most companies are actually phishing email. And 90%, based on the study of the first quarter of 2020, 90% of the cyber attacks begins with phishing. And this is true actually for most of the fraud and scam that I would be discussing with you. They all start with phishing. And right now, phishing is the number one method of attack, attacking a company, attacking a person. So ransomware. What is ransomware? Ransomware is actually a malicious program. So what is the intention of a ransomware? Previously, the only intention of a ransomware is actually to lock down your computer or lock down your information and then extort money from you so that you'll be given the key to open up your computers or to open up your information. But right now, they've sort of evolved. Ransomware right now is not just being used to lock down your information, to convince you to pay money so that they would give you the key or the decryption key so that you can now access your computer or your information. It is also being used now to steal data, so that there would be additional pressure to the victim to pay, because if you don't pay the ransom, then they would threaten you in terms of releasing the information that they have stolen from you. Okay. So again, what's the reason for doing ransomware? Well, the bad guys or the threat actors does it for money. And ransomware is one of the big business right now in terms of cyber fraud. One example, recently there was a travel company in the US called CWT, and it was alleged that they paid 4.2 million pesos to be able to get the key to their information that was victimized by a ransomware program. And last year, Travelex, the company that does foreign exchange, they were also victimized by a ransomware, and they also paid big money because they were down for several days and they were not able to restore their system. And it was alleged that they had to pay the ransom so that the bad guy or the threat actor or the hacker will give them the key so that they be able to access again and provide service to their companies. So who are being targeted by the ransomware? Well, right now they're targeting everyone from small, medium to large businesses. The more recent victims, LG Electronics. The more recent one is actually, well, LG Electronics and Canon. Canon, the maker of the camera. They were victimized by a ransomware attack wherein all images that were uploaded in their website were inaccessible. And apparently, it was also stolen because a few days after, it was found to be available in the dark web. Okay, so those are the most common definition, and I will be referring to them as we discuss the common fraud, cyber fraud, and scams that we have been experiencing or that have been being reported to us. Okay, so the first one, and pardon me for those that doesn't understand Tagalog or doesn't speak Filipino. This is one of the material that we use to educate our user and our clients. What is this advisory is primarily saying is that there is gold in SIM card, there is money in SIM card, and this is actually referring to a fraud called SIM swapping. This is very serious, and actually they're very prevalent in the Philippines right now. And it's so serious that even the Central Bank of the Philippines had to issue an advisory warning to all financial institutions about this type of fraud. So this is what we call SIM swapping or SIM card fraud attack. So how does the fraudster do this? There are actually two ways this is being done. Before the COVID pandemic, when we can still go to the mall, when we can still do face-to-face transaction, what this fraudster does is one, first they will steal your information, and this is done through phishing. They would steal your personal information. And once they have your personal information, they will now go to the SIM company or telecom company and pretend to be you. And they would request for a SIM replacement. They would impersonate you since they already have your information. So they now can impersonate you. They can even present an ID bearing your information but bearing their picture. So now they would request for a replacement of the SIM. So why do they do that? Why do they want to steal your SIM? Remember, in most phone banking facility, information are being kept in the SIM. So they can restore. Remember, they can restore the SIM from the telephone company, so they can download information back to the new SIM. So that's primarily the target, the information that is being saved on the SIM. And this includes your phone banking information, which may also include your password and some other credentials. So this is how they do it pre-COVID, when you can still do face-to-face transaction, where you can go to the mall, you can go to the cell phone or to the telco business center and just request for a SIM. But they have evolved actually during the COVID or during the pandemic period, wherein everyone is limited to their homes. There's no center or telephone company center for you to go to request for the SIM. So what do? Again, they would start in stealing your information, and this is primarily done through phishing. They would steal your personal information, then someone will contact you, and this person that will contact you will impersonate and represent themselves as a representative of the telephone company, and presenting with you with a promo. Usually they would say it's a promo because during the pandemic there was a lot of complaint in terms of the performance of the internet, and they took advantage of this because most of the promo or promotion that they offer to you to entice you are actually giving you a better SIM to give you better performance. So now they do it door to door. Instead of you going to the mall to request for a replacement during the quarantine period, they go to your place of residence. There was an actual report wherein somebody who lives in a condominium said that a telephone company representative went to the condominium and asked for that person, and that person met the telephone company representative in the lobby, and offered him a SIM replacement under the guise that it would be a better SIM and it would give him better performance in terms of the access to the network. But what actually was being done is that they would just steal your information because they also request for your old SIM. So once you give them your old SIM, basically giving them all of your information, including whatever bank or financial information that is being kept in the SIM. And there was one alleged victim who said that he lost 200,000 pesos in his bank account in less than 5 minutes from the time that he gave his old SIM to the time that he realized, hey, something is wrong. So then when he started checking his account using his online banking, his internet banking, um, that's the time he discovered that he lost all of his money. So another actually threat or fraud that the central bank has been warning everyone is actually identity theft. And again, unfortunately, this thing starts with phishing. Uh, because people are being lured into giving information, personal information, because of how the phishing or the phishing email are crafted in terms of um, realistic email that's supposedly coming from your bank or from other companies that you're dealing with. So this is something that we continuously remind our clients and our customers. So they need to be careful about this. And we've also encouraged them to do, some forms of protection like changing their password or changing their security question in terms of their online account. Then I'll be giving you more in terms of those tips on how to protect ourselves. Okay. Then there's also this fraud, charity scam. Okay. When the pandemic started, the first type of fraud was actually based on providing information about the COVID. Because at that time, almost everybody was craving for information. We want to know what is this COVID, how can we be protected from this COVID, is there a cure, etc., etc. So that was the first team that they were using to scam people. Usually, they would send you email uh, posing as information to help you deal with COVID. But the moment you click on it, the moment you click on the link, then they would just steal your information. Then they evolved midway in the pandemic. They when people started paying attention to the frontliners, and there were actually organization, valid, legitimate organization that started some charity initiative to be able to provide for this for the frontliners. The bad guys or the fraudster also took advantage and used that to scam you, to convince you to provide information, to convince you to give money. So this is what you call the charity scam. And actually, there's a third evolution to this type of scam. So from providing COVID-related information to convincing you to give to charity. Now, the third evolution of this scam is actually they're now offering financial assistance. The team of the email is actually offering financial assistance. But again, the main objective is for you to supply them your financial information. They would try to convince you, okay, I'll be giving you some money to help you get back on your feet, but you need to provide your banking details. So I would beg you, please do not fall for this scam because you will be losing money. Another scam is actually online selling. During the lockdown or the quarantine, everyone was doing online purchasing since nobody can really go to the supermarket or nobody, well, all of the mall are closed. So everyone went to online to do their marketing, to buy whatever they need. Unfortunately, the bad guys also took advantage of this. And there were a lot of fraudulent reseller or fraudulent seller that did this online scam. They would try to convince you that they would be, that they can sell you face masks and other protection. There was some shortage in terms of alcohol or disinfectant during the first 2 months of the quarantine. So this online scammer were trying to convince people to buy from them. And unfortunately, the way they're doing it, you are required to pay in advance. But the moment you pay, then your money is gone. You won't get the goods that you paid for. and there were a lot of this actually in Manila that the authorities had to get involved. Fortunately, there were some of them that were caught. It's either selling bad goods, meaning they are what they would deliver to you is not what they show you online, or some of them doesn't even give you anything. The moment you pay, your money is gone. Okay. This one is actually very old fraud, and this been going on. This is a reminder to our customer, particularly those that are on pension account or payroll account. We try to convince our customer not to fall for this type of scam. Don't be a mule or a money mule. Most of the frauds that are being done online would require a way to get the money out. Most of the fraud being done online are actually transaction done online, and money stays online. But they need to find a way to convert this to actual money, and this is where the money mule comes in. This is where you normally get an email uh, that would promise you a return on some investment. But when you reply to this email, actually it's an offer to be a mule. They would give you a percentage of the amount of money that they stole, and convince you to be the drop account. They would send the money to your account, and for you to take that account and send it to their own account. And this is actually very prevalent in the Philippines. And unfortunately, there are some areas in the south where there's a very high percentage of incidents with regards to money mule. For our own bank, 2 years ago, we were able to catch an entire barangay that have gone into this type of business, and they were working with some Nigerians who conducts fraud online and uses the account of that entire barangay as a drop account to send the money that they have stolen from somebody else's account, and then ask those people to remit it to a different account, and they get a percentage. And this actually is again a very lucrative business, and this is big business for some of the West African that are actually in the Philippines. Um, and this is actually based on what we have seen. We were able to catch a Filipina in Las Piñas, and we were able to bring this Filipina to the police station. But in less than 3 hours, there was like a big time lawyer who came in and just bailed out this Filipina. So this is not a small time business for this, and there's a full organization actually that is supporting this. And actually, there's a move right now being initiated by some of the banks to convince the central bank and also the government to come up with a law to put more punishment in terms of people allowing their accounts to be used for this type of activities. Because right now the law is there's a big gray area as far as the law is concerned with regards to this type of activities. So hopefully that law would be acceptable to the government, and they would be introducing it soon, so that we can discourage our kababayans in terms of going into this type of business. Another type of phishing is actually clone phishing. This is also a form of email phishing, and this is actually a little difficult to detect, because what they will do is usually an email phishing is a new email that you are receiving. But what does clone phishing do? What is the difference? Clone phishing do, instead of you receiving an email, it's as if you're receiving a reply. So they would craft the email as if it's an email that came from you, and they are just replying to you. So chances are, I mean, you won't be able to notice that it's something new, because it's already formatted as if it's a reply to your own email. So that's why we're saying it's very difficult to detect, because most people would trust a reply rather than a new email. But again, the objective is the same. One is to steal information from you or to convince you to supply them with your personal or financial information. Or second, to convince you to perform something. Maybe click on an attachment document, click on a link so that they'll be able to install a program, a malicious program into your computer to steal information from your computer. Or worse, install a program in your computer and steal information from your company if you're using that computer in your company. So again, this is just another form of phishing, but it's very effective as far as the uh, hacker are concerned, and it's really difficult to detect. That's why we really need to be very, very careful. Okay. This is another phishing that's been going on for. We've detected this, I think, for the last month. Um, the bad guys or the hackers have noticed that a lot of people have gone to the Office 365 or Microsoft Online email because it's easier to use, particularly for those that are doing work from home. You don't really need to be in the office to be able to access your email. But unfortunately, this condition or this situation is being misused by the hacker. So they're using this as a form of phishing email to make it as if it's a legitimate email that you will receive in your mailbox. And usually they would put some urgency on it with the title that it's an email advising you that your password is about to expire. Obviously, people who are working from home might have some difficulty in terms of contacting their data or their help desk to be able to confirm this. And chances are they would just click on the email or open whatever attachment is on the email. Um, this is very prevalent right now. Just yesterday, I saw a news that the Nepal is actually under attack by this type of phishing. There's an active campaign by some cyber criminal and using this type of phishing, this team of phishing to attack Nepal and some neighboring countries in Nepal. So you really need to be careful. If you receive email that advises you that your password is expiring, please try to make an effort to verify it with your office. If you receive an email saying, "Oh, your Netflix subscription is about to expire," or there's something wrong, please do not provide information and try to reach out to the published numbers of their call center or their customer service and verify. I know we're all busy, we're all distracted by what's going on around with this pandemic, but we really need to make an effort because this might, bring more stress to us. So we really need to be careful about this. Now, let me show you how you can spot a phishing email. This is an example of a phishing email that we received in our bank. So what are the signs of a phishing email? Okay. So number one, they uses an official or suspicious domain. In case you're not able to see it clearly, I'll try to enlarge it. Okay. If you notice, if you're if you're not careful, you will chances are you will misread this as pnb.com. But if you notice, it's actually PN Bank. So there's no B. As PNB. It's pnbank.com. So usually they would try to make a play in terms of the domain name. It's either they would hide an under um, a period or some other not so visible character to trick you to trick you to think that it's actually the legitimate domain. So that is the number one sign. Another sign is actually the usual subject. Usually the subject would have some urgency to it. Like, we are now deactivating your account. So chances are the whoever would be receiving this would be on panic mode. Especially now, since you are on work from home, it's not so easy to call your help desk or to call your support people. So this is what the fraudster or the hacker is want to happen, for you to panic. So they would put urgency in their subject. So what is the third sign? Third sign is usually there is an attachment to it. An attachment are it's not your usual file. Usually the attachment, we got so used to having attachment with an extension of .doc for document, or .xls for some worksheet or Excel file, or JPEG or JPG for some images. But usually they would have some not so regular or not so familiar extension. Okay, so this is like a sign that it might be a malicious attachment. Then fourth, actually, the fourth sign, the fourth sign is actually inconsistency in the subject. If you notice, in the heading, in the header of the email, it says we are now deactivating your account. But in the body of the email, the subject changes. It's now system upgrade. So you try to look for this type of sign. If there are inconsistency in the content of the email compared to the subject of the email in the header of the email, then that is a sign that it might be a malicious email. Then another sign is actually the way they greet you in the salutation. Usually it would be a generic greeting, like dear customer. They won't even greet you using your name. Or chances are, if they do greet you with your name, they would greet you with your full name. We have one person in our company. He knows immediately if the sender is actually a friend or a familiar person to him, because they would usually greet him or address him with his full name. It's just like when your wife is angry with you, they would call you Roland. But if she's not angry and she needs something from you, they would call you like honey. So 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 either it's a generic greeting, or they would address you with your full name, even complete, even with the initial. Okay. Oops. Uh, then another sign is actually in the body of the email. Majority of the phishing email that chances are that you would be receiving are machine generated. Actually the content of the email is generated by the machine, and unfortunately people keeps talking about artificial intelligence, but some of these machines are really not good in English or not good in spelling. So there's a big chance that there would be wrong spelling or wrong grammar within the body of the email. uh, so that might also be a sign that it's a malicious email. Then of course, I'm sorry, seventh sign is actually, it's again referring to a link that does not match your company or the domain that you're using. So like this one. So this is an email pretending to be something that was sent by the Philippine National Bank. Chances are sent to a customer, supposedly coming from our customer service, advising the user that his account is being activated. But within the body of the email, it's saying that it's with regards to a system upgrade. So this phishing email will have this type of inconsistency, and this is the type of things that we really need to watch out for. And also to help you in terms of identifying malicious email, just think of the word RES. So R stands for requesting for confidential information. Majority of the phishing email actually requests for information, and they would request for confidential information. It's either your personal financial information or your company's financial information. Then you can E for emotion. Majority of the phishing email that I have seen and that I have encountered actually would have emotion in it. They would put some sense of urgency so that you pay attention. So it's either urgency that involves money, urgency that involves um, something that is related to your account, to your usually your financial account, because they know people would pay attention. Then of course S for spelling. Majority of the phishing email are actually machine generated, and it's prone to wrong spelling or wrong grammar. So you can be judgmental as far as this type of emails are concerned. And it's better to be on the safe side, and it's either ignore it or validate it with it's either with your bank or to whoever is they are pretending to be. So if it's a company, then I would recommend that you just call that company and validate it. And never call them by using numbers supplied within the email. Always try to use the numbers that are being published either by your bank or your other service company that you're using. Do not, if you are suspicious of an email and you want to validate the content or the announcement that is in the email, call the company using contact details or contact numbers that are published in their website. Never use something that is part of the email that you receive, because they might be leading you to someone who again will be pretending to be the customer service of that company. And of course, the letter T, to think twice. Again, think before you click. Always ask yourself, um, is this really for me? There were also some phishing email, and the subject matter is actually invoices from DHL. So if you receive that, the first thing that you need to ask, hey, did I send something to DHL? Am I expecting something via DHL? So why would DHL send me? There was also another subject that was being used by this phishing email. This is with regards to like an invoice from Apple. So why would I be receiving an invoice from Apple? I'm using Microsoft. I'm not using an iPhone. I'm using a Samsung or an Android. So why would I be receiving? So those are the kinds of things that that we need to watch out for. I know that we're busy, we're distracted by but by what's going on with this pandemic, but we really need to be careful. We need to always ask, is this true? Is this legitimate? And I would also recommend that you make time in terms of validating the authenticity of the email that you receive or the instruction that you receive. This one is actually an old school or an old strategy for malicious actor or hacker. This is baiting you with USB. Yeah, usually what they would do is they would leave USB lying around, usually in the coffee shop, but it's good. It's locked down, so you won't be able to the coffee shop, or maybe on the street. They would just drop it, hoping that someone would pick it up. Um, so if let's say somebody got it, pick it up, well, unfortunately, people are very curious. I'll bet you a month's salary that the moment they get home, they would immediately plug it in their computer and wants to know what's in the USB. But this is another form of just infecting your computer with malware or malicious software, so that they'll be able to steal money from you or steal your information, or worse, steal information from your company if you are using that same computer in your company. So don't be too trusting on USB that you find in the street, that you find in the coffee shop. Actually, even USB that are being shared with you by your friends. I would suggest that you try to scan those USB first before you use it, and never use something that was shared to you in your company's computer, because you might be doing your company a big harm if you do that. Okay. So the next agenda is actually is a breakdown of a cyber scam. These are two related incident. Actually, they're almost the same incident that was reported. The first one was actually reported last July 21, and I was able to personally confirm with the concerned bank that this is a true incident. But in terms of the sequence of events, it's kind of different from how the victim was reporting it, because the victim shared it in an online chat group. Then the second story was actually posted in Facebook. Almost the same incident, almost the same story, but it was a different date. It was posted by the alleged victim in Facebook. Supposedly, she was sharing it as a public service announcement, or to help people avoid getting victimized. And the second incident allegedly happened last August 7th. Okay. Uh, the slide is a little crowded, but I just want to highlight things. I mean, the highlighted words. According to the first story, which was posted in a online chat group, this was posted by a person who claimed that he or she got scammed in her bank, and that the scammer did it using the one-time password. Apparently, according to the victim, he received a call, supposedly from this lady called Karen Chua. She also posted the number based on what was registered in her phone, informing her that the bank is migrating their system and wanted to test with the user if the user is able to receive messages promptly or on time. Um, Just a comment. I work in a bank. I've been working in a bank for more than 15 years. We will never test our system with a live customer. Um, I, it's. I have not seen it done in the last 15 years that I've been with the bank, and I've gone through several system migration and system implementation. We never test a system or an upgrade with a live customer, because we also have bank employees that have bank account with us. We even have test accounts, so we can test. So our testing would be limited to those accounts, because those accounts we can control. you know I don't think there would be any bank in the world that would be testing their system and being opening themselves from criticism, because what if the system fail? So you don't want to involve customer in something that can potentially fail. So that's a big no. The bank will never do that. Okay. Then again, according to the victim, she already suspected. She was at least aware that this is something that is out of the ordinary. Why would somebody call her, and ask her to do this? But again, she trusted the caller, because apparently the caller said that she would be receiving a message from a legitimate sender, or a number that is being used by the bank. And lo and behold, the following day, which is supposedly a Sunday morning, she got a message from the bank OTP. If you are if you have a credit card, usually credit cards nowadays, if you do a transaction, and if your transaction is up to a certain limit or a certain amount, you would be given, you will be receiving a one-time password to complete the transaction. And if you look at the message that you receive that contain the one-time password, it is usually sent. You will not see the number of the sender. Usually, what you will see is actually most likely the name of the credit card company or the name of the bank, then the word OTP. Okay. And if you're going to look at your phone right now and look at the messages that you receive from your bank, sender ID, actually it's called sender ID. Let's say your bank has a sender ID for sending you one-time password. If your phone, let's say, have the last 12 months of messages that you have received from your bank OTP sender ID, I'll bet you that they do not contain any other message other than one-time password. So this is already something suspicious. You will not receive a different message from a bank sender ID that is intended for sending one-time password. Those are very specific sender ID for very specific use. So we will not, do mixed usage in terms of this type of sender ID. So if the sender ID is for one-time password, you will only receive one-time password information messages, nothing else. You will not even receive a call from that sender ID. So that's already one red flag. So she received a message uh, from her bank's one-time password sender ID, giving her instruction. Then she acknowledged the instruction and she received the call from this Karen Chua. And she was asked that they are testing and to please validate if she received a message. And actually, she was asked to read the message. And the message that she received was actually a one-time password notification because the scammer is already trying to register their own device to her account. So when they were doing it, they require a one-time password to complete that transaction. And the one-time password at this time will still be sent to the victim's phone number or registered phone number. So she was asked to read it aloud. So in reading aloud, they were able to get the one-time password and they were able to complete the registration of a new device. And they did it actually twice. The first one is to register the new device, and she was asked to read a second message that she is supposed to have received. And again, this is actually a one-time password to register the mobile keys for that new device. Once that is done, uh, what actually happened is that her account now have a new device registered to it. Her device now is linked actually to a new device. So once that is completed, the scammer is now able to do a transaction, which is what they did. They did fund transferred and empty out the account. Okay. So, and when the victim checked her email, because she was also receiving notification on her email, that's where she saw the transfer, the transfer of money. And apparently she lost almost 100,000 pesos. And this is actually some of the comments that the victim made included in the post that she did. She's actually aware. She admitted that you're not supposed to give your one-time password to stranger, and the bank is very particular on this. We continuously remind our customer that the bank, if the bank itself or any of our representative will never ask you for your one-time password. There's no reason for us to ask you for your one-time password. So never give out your one-time password. Okay. And also, the victim is claiming she got a message from the official bank one-time password sender ID, even though she knows that it's supposed to be used only for sending one-time password. But this one, she entertained a call. Um, so the user is aware actually, but still the scammer was able to convince her to follow their instruction. Um, and the question is, how did the scammer targeted her? How did the scammer know that she is the person that they would be calling? Apparently, according to the bank security people that I've spoken to, she was actually first a victim of a phishing email from the same scammer. She received an email and she replied to the email, and where she supplied her information. She entered her information in that email, which was pretending to be also from the bank, supposedly for some type of transaction. So that's where the scammer got her details. Even prior to the first call, the scammer already know who she is and that she has an account to that bank, and that's why she was a very good target because the scammer already knows information about her. So as I mentioned in the first part of our session, everything start actually with phishing email, with phishing SMS, with even voice phishing. Apparently in Singapore, that is very prevalent right now. You're receiving calls for someone pretending to be from your bank, from other for companies that you are getting services from, advising you that either your account is expiring or there's something wrong with your account. Um, I I would strongly suggest that you verify. Don't take the call on face value or as is. Try to verify it. There's a lot of bad guys out there that trying to take advantage of the current situation where people are distracted by this pandemic, and they would try to put you in panic mode by putting some urgency in their message. But please try to keep your head and try to do the right thing. Verify it with the companies or with the service providers. The second story is actually more or less the same. Um, Actually, this one, when I first saw it, I was sort of skeptic because the opening sentence in the in the post it came from a friend of a friend. I've been unofficially doing security for, let's say, for more than 10 years. I became officially dealing with cybersecurity, information security in the last 3 years. Every time I receive something or I hear something that starts with "I got this from a friend of a friend," uh, half of my brain is already closed. I'm already ignoring the information, um, because that is a classic sign that it's either fake news or something that is not true, or maybe partially true, but there's already a lot of untruth inserted in the story. But anyway, since I know that the first story was true, so I paid attention to this. And more or less what this victim was saying, and this was posted in her Facebook account, is basically the same. She received, I think this is just a rehash of the first story. People on social media would, like to have a scoop in terms of this type of incident. And I've seen people trying to rehash somebody else's experience and represent it as if it's their own experience. But then again, the story for this second victim is actually the same. She received a message, a text message from the bank, one-time password sender ID. Again, the bank will never send you anything else other than your one-time password that you require for a transaction that you're trying to do using this sender ID. They will not send you a happy birthday or a notice of disconnection or a notice of password expiry using this sender account. Most likely, they would send you to you to using a different sender ID or maybe contacting you directly. But this one is the same. So he received a message from the bank's sender ID that's being used for one-time password. He was also given instruction that a representative would be contacting her or calling her because they're again testing a new system. And the same thing was asked of her. She was asked to read the message that she received as part of their test. And she also received two messages she read those two messages, which actually enabled the scammer to register a new device and facilitate a fund transfer. And all of her money was transferred, and they only left her with 200 pesos in her account. Again, I would like to reiterate, bank uses a particular sending ID for a very specific function. If it's for one-time password, it will only be used for sending one-time password. If it's a sender ID to inform you that your statement of account for your credit card is available, it will only be used for doing that. It will never be used to call you. It will never be used to give you other instruction except relating to your statement of account or to your one-time password. So we need to be very careful and we need to be very aware of these things. Okay. So those are the two more recent incident that I have seen, and one I have confirmed personally that it was a true incident. But unfortunately, the bank, I doubt if they would be able to reimburse the person that was victimized. Uh, then just a little advertisement in PNB, we have something called like an insurance for your account. So if in case you are victimized by this type of scam, you might be able to get some of your money back, and you can contact Christy for that one. So that's the advertisement. Okay. So how can we protect ourselves? How do we protect ourselves from this scammer, from this fraudster, from this hacker? Number one, stay protected while connected. Okay. I don't trust public Wi-Fi. They are not secured, and they are easy to be taken over by hacker. And sometimes they don't even need to take over an existing Wi-Fi. They will just pretend to be another uh, Wi-Fi facility. And this is actually most of incident of this type actually happen in the malls. We're in like in Singapore, almost every brand would have a free Wi-Fi connection. So if let's say you go into a Louis Vuitton shop, there would be a Louis Vuitton free Wi-Fi or guest connection. If you go to a Coach shop, then there would be a Coach shop. So it's easy for a hacker to pretend to be as another free Wi-Fi connection inside the mall. And it's so easy to do. They just need a small computer to do that. So never be too trusting of the free Wi-Fi connection, especially the public Wi-Fi connection. In the Philippines, we have a term for this type of user. We call them the mahilig mangapit Wi-Fi. Yung nakiki-Wi-Fi sa kapitbahay. For those that does not understand Tagalog, I was referring to user who try to use the Wi-Fi of their neighbor. So we call them your friendly Wi-Fi neighborhood. So I hope you understand that. So please be wary of public Wi-Fi. Uh, if you're planning to do some major financial transaction, please do not do it in public Wi-Fi. You might be sending your money to somebody else. Then of course, there's a lot of new lessons that was learned in the new normal, in the new pandemic, because people were doing a lot of onlines. There's a lot of new habits that was formed, and those people that were not that does not really do online were now forced to do online shopping, online banking. Everything is almost done online, and this gave actually the bad guys a huge opportunity, to steal information and to steal your money. So the reminder is actually to be careful. If there's a good hygiene to avoid the COVID-19, there's also a good hygiene to avoid being victimized by cyber criminal. Okay. If you are wearing face mask or face shield, to avoid the virus, then you also need to do the same when you're doing online transaction or your online activity. You need to make sure that you know who you're connecting to. Uh, you make sure that the email that you're receiving or the email that you are replying is really who they claim to be. If you need to verify it with a call, please verify it with a call. Or if you need to verify it by an email, verify it by not replying to the email that you receive. Maybe just send us a separate email just to verify and validate the person who's claiming to be sending you the email. And we really need to stay alert. I know that everyone, all of us are distracted by this pandemic. We're worried about our health, but we cannot afford to let our guards down. So we really need to really stay alert and be aware with regards to this threat. Hello? Can the host confirm if I'm still being heard?
We can hear you, Roland.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, it's raining a little bit, so that's how it is in the Philippines. If it rains, Wi-Fi gets affected, and I'm not actually using my own Wi-Fi, not my neighbor's Wi-Fi. So again, instead of using password, single word password, you might want to use a whole sentence as your password, and I'll bet you it's easier to remember. You can use something to describe you, something to describe a loved one, something to describe that you like, something to describe uh, an experience in your when you were young, or but do not use popular phrases or statement. So try to use something that is unique to you. And for Filipinos, I would recommend try to use something in Tagalog, because majority of the password hacking tool actually starts usually in the English language. So if you use something in English, the probability of it being guessed easier is higher. But if you use Tagalog, or maybe even in your local dialect, it will be harder, or it will take them longer for them to guess. Okay. And this is a sample. Uh, did I get disconnected again? Hello? Oh, sorry. Am I still connected? Hello?
Yes, we can still hear you. You
Okay,
just have to
sorry.
share the slide to us.
Yes, go ahead
Oh, okay.
po.
Because the Zoom keeps on shutting down. Just hold on. I think I lost the sharing capability. You cannot see the slide anymore. Oh, let me just share it again.
We can hear you and we can see you though.
Okay. Pardon the confused look on my face because the Zoom screen keeps on disappearing.
Sige lang po kasi
Okay.
nung una may problema na naman yung akin. So anyway, I think we're okay, right? Ed, can
Yeah.
you confirm, Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So going back to the regular programming. So again, as I mentioned, instead of using password, I would recommend that you consider using passphrases. And this is why. So I'll give you some example. So passphrases. And pardon the foreigner guest. The sample that I have is actually all in Tagalog or in Filipino. Maybe you can ask your auntie to explain this to you. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is in English, sorry. So one of the phrases that you might want to consider is you're nothing but a second-rate, trying hard copycat. I'm sure the titas and the titos in the audience would know where this came from. So obviously it came from a movie. Okay. So this is 47 characters. I remove all the spaces. I only counted the characters, including the apostrophe sign, the comma. So this is already a 47 character password that you can use. So imagine comparing it to a 10 character against a 47 character. I'll bet you it will take the hacker longer to guess the 47 character against your 10 character password. Okay. Another example is she loved me at my worst, you had me at my best. For the millennial, you might be able to recognize this dialogue. This dialogue came from one famous Filipino movie. The lead actor is actually John Lloyd and Bea Alonso. So one more chance. So again, this is 39 characters. And I'll bet you it's easier to remember than a 10 character wherein you need alpha, numeric, and special character. Um, Personally, I think this is easier to remember. You don't need to write this down. I'm sure if you are a John Lloyd fans, you know this by heart. Then third is para naman sa mas mabata pa sa millennial. Am I not enough? Pangit ba ako? Kapalit-palit ba ako? Then why? So this is 56 character. And I'm sure I'll bet you will remember this. You can memorize this. You can recite this even while sleeping. And you don't have to write this down. Again, I only counted the characters without the space, and that's already 56 characters. Imagine 56 character compared to a 10 character. Even if the hacker used an AI or a large computer, it would still take them more time to guess 56 against 10. And this is an example of a 10 character password. This is what you are required to use now. You need to have an alpha or an alphabetical character. You need to have a numeric. You have to have a number. And you need to have special character. Sige nga, i-memorize nyo nga ito. Tingnan ko kung matandaan nyo. I'll bet you you will create a very unique 10-character password, and soon you'll be demanded to system would be requiring you to put in 12 characters. And if you do that, and I'll bet you that you'll be writing this down. You will be writing it a small piece of paper, keeping it in your wallet, or worse, writing it in a post-it paper and stick it at the back of your monitor, or maybe insert it in your cell phone cover. So try passphrases. It's easier to remember, and it's longer and it's harder to guess. And for the Filipinos, I would suggest that you try to use Tagalog or the Filipino. Okay. This is just a study actually in terms of how long or how fast this is based on an Australian study, how fast a hacker can guess, the usual password. A 10 character with special characters and numeric alpha would take about 2.5 hours for a relatively good hacker to guess. And for them, that's already a long time. Hacker wants to get returns immediately. They want to monetize their activity immediately. So if it will take them a day or 2 days to guess your password, chances are they'll just move on to the next victim and just ignore you, because to them time is gold. To them, time costs money, so they need to steal money to make a profit out of their activity. So they would target mostly those that are easy to guess password. So the harder you make it for them, the chances are you're deterring them from targeting you, and just convince them to move on to a different target. Then of course, for those that are working in companies, I would recommend that you separate your work and personal devices. Okay. That is one, to protect yourselves, and also to protect your company. One is, if you are not careful with your personal devices and you use it for work-related activities, then you might be putting your company in danger. Or if you do your personal transaction, let's say you do your personal online banking using a work device or work laptop, and what if your company suddenly becomes a target, then your personal information may be collateral damage if, let's say, your company becomes a target or a victim. So please separate your devices from personal to work related activities. And this is very important. Do not reuse credentials. So again, use unique password. If you can use passphrases, consider use passphrases. But don't use favorite password. Okay, I'm sure that all of us have more than two online accounts. You will have your email, and chances are people in this session will have more than one email. I'm sure of that. You will have more than one email. And I'm sure also that you are subscribing to some social media service. It's available. So that can be your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, and some other social media. So please do not use the same credentials across all of those online service that you're using. And I'll tell you why in the succeeding slide. Okay. But again, the main reason is, if one gets compromised, then technically all of your accounts are compromised because you're using the same credentials. Okay. Then, as I mentioned, now systems right now are actually requiring more than 8 characters. You're now required to put in 10 characters. So it's getting harder to memorize single word password. And then again, avoid using password that contain common phrases if you're going to be using, pass phrases. Um, don't use regular phrases like the root of evil is money. I mean, the more popular one. Try to use maybe a unique verse if you are into Bible verses, or maybe a statement that describes you or describes someone in your family, or someone describes someone that is related to the account that where you're using those credentials. And never use password. You might be like mix and matching. So you have a Yahoo account and you have a Gmail account. So once those email account password expire, what you will just do is just exchange the password. Please don't do that. You're just making it easier for the hacker or the cyber criminal to make you a victim. Okay. And again, never trust unsecured Wi-Fi. And you can see this, if it's just HTTP, then be very careful about those Wi-Fi connection and those websites. Okay. Then also avoid password walking. Before, people are really we have very bad habits. We're lazy in terms of being creative with our password. We presume that we are being creative when we use keys, magkakatabing key or character in our keyboard to generate a supposedly a unique password. But the hackers also knows that. So, and actually that would be the first thing that they would be testing. They would be testing your password against combination that is how the keys, the keyboard is laid out. So you're not being wise if you're doing that. You're just, again, making it easier for the bad guys to make a victim out of you. And the reason why I would like to emphasize not to use or reuse your credentials is because of this. A lot of websites have been breached. I'm sure there is somebody in this session that have used Zynga because these are mobile games. Um, in 2019, 218 million accounts in Zynga was compromised, was breached, was stolen. Dabmash, this used to be the TikTok 3 years ago for video messaging. This is a video messaging app. 161.5 million accounts were compromised or were stolen. The other one, the third one, is actually related to the US. This is a American bank holding company wherein 100 million credit card information of Americans were stolen. And the other one is House. It's a web design, a website. Well, some of you might fancy this if you like looking at how to interior decorate a room. You might be interested in this website. And unfortunately, 48.9 million accounts or or account information in this website have been compromised. And just to bring it closer to home, the Philippines is actually high on the list of the targets countries as far as cyber criminal is concerned. We are now the 73rd in terms of the list of high targets. Then for Facebook user, 267 million Facebook users were exposed. And I think this is a very conservative estimate. They've been known to have higher exposure. And in Singapore, they had an incident, I think, last year wherein 100,000 personal information of Singapore defense personnel were leaked to the dark web. Okay. Then in the Philippines, in 2019, Cebuana Lhuillier, this is a public knowledge, Cebuana Lhuillier suffered a data breach wherein 900,000 of their clients' information were stolen. So if you're using Cebuana to remit money to the Philippines, chances are your information is already out there. And again, Singapore Ministry of Health in 2019, 14,200 information of people on diagnosis of HIV positive persons in Singapore were stolen and leaked out. And actually, that was the second one because in July 2018, the SingHealth Specialist Outpatient Clinic suffered a data breach wherein 1.5 million patients' information were stolen, including the Prime Minister of Singapore. This was believed to have been perpetrated by a nation state hacker. The suspect is actually North Korea. In the Philippines, Wendy's and Jollibee actually suffered a data breach. Jollibee did not disclose how many information were potentially stolen, but I think for Wendy's, there were like around 80,000 personal details that were stolen. And who can forget the COMELEC, the Philippine Commission on Election in March 27, 2016, lost 55 million personal information of registered voter. And 15.8 million of those records are actually records of our fingerprint. And it also includes information of 1.3 million overseas Filipino voters. So chances are some of your personal information are already out there and is available. And if you're a long-time Yahoo user, in 2014, Yahoo confirmed that they've lost through a data breach, meaning data were stolen for 500 million users. And actually, to date, Yahoo have lost more than 500 million. And actually, my account was actually one of those that were breached. And Yahoo even had to pay damages because in the US, somebody brought them to court. There was a class suit brought to Yahoo because of damages that were caused by this data breach, wherein personal information was stolen, and Yahoo actually paid. But unfortunately, they only considered user in the US and user from Israel. I think on average, people got around, I cannot recall whether it's $345 or $3,450 each. So we really need to be careful because our information are already out there. So I would encourage you to regularly change your password. Never reuse password. Never use the same credentials in all of your internet account. Try to use different accounts. So if, let's say, different in your Yahoo, different in your let's say Gmail, or different in your Facebook. So if one of these companies suffered a data breach, you're still safe in your other online account. And don't, I mean, you might be using different user ID, but if you're using the same password for all of it, then it's the same. So please use different password for your internet account. And this is actually a website that you can go to, and you can check if your email have been part of a data breach. You can go to this website and just type in your email. If you have several email, you can type all of your email address and just click on the pawn. Then what it will show you, it will confirm if your email or your email address have been part of a data breach or a data leakage incident. When I first tried this, I had a very old Yahoo address, which is Roland0707 at yahoo.com. When I type it, I was informed that it has been pawned, meaning it was already in the dark web because of a breach in one of the online service that I most likely have registered to. And actually, these were the sources where they got my email address. And this is when I realized that I did registered in house. So I had to change my password immediately. So you can try this. It's actually a legitimate website, and this is the URL. So it's I have been pawned. If you cannot see it, let me just try and enlarge. Yeah. So this is the website. Have I been pawned without the a.com. So you can try it. Type in your email address just to find out. Just in case you have registered to a website a long time ago and you have forgotten about it, and if that website have been breached, your information might be out there in the dark web. So I would recommend that it's either you close that account or I'm sorry, close that account.
Are you okay po?
Yeah, sorry. I had a minor accident. Sorry about that. Wow, mali. Okay. So please check the website and try it out and find out if you have accounts that have been part of a compromise or of a data breach. Then again, last message is please think before you click. Do not respond to any suspicious email. Try to trust your instinct. If something smells fishy, most likely it is fishy, and try to validate it. And do not open any attachment from people that you don't know, from sender that you don't know, or sender that you remotely know. And try to always validate it. And unfortunately, technology has brought us a lot of convenience, but it also became convenient for for bad guys to do bad things or malicious action to us. So we need to go back to the basic. We need to do validation. I know it's going to be tedious, but during this period, it's I mean, that would be an advice that I would suggest you take. Because mahirap magpa-cancel ng credit card. It's hard to, have a credit card cancel, have it replaced. Especially here in Manila, we're still in a sort of lockdown. Some, banks are still closed, and it's so hard to get, people to provide you support or to provide replacement. So that's my last tip for you guys. Then I am open for question, and hopefully I can answer you. Let me just adjust my screen. Ayan.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, so much. That's a lot of things to learn and take note of. Are you okay lang kayo?
Yeah, sure. I'm okay. Sorry. I forgot to ask you to advise me if I'm already taking too long. I do talk a lot when I start, I cannot stop.
Yeah,
But if you have questions, yeah, please.
very interesting topic. All about phishing, and of course, we want to safeguard our money and our identity before somebody else take them or take our identity. So this is very, very useful. May mga questions po. One question here from Johnny Crave Cañete. With regard to Money Mule, is this not covered by AML CFT rules and regulations by AMLC? The bank file SAR for investigation and can be penalized due to money laundering.
Well, if it's big enough, if you meet the threshold, then you can be part of that. It can be within the scope of the AMLA or the anti-money laundering. But unfortunately, they're doing it in volume. People trying to steal small amount of money, trying to work under the radar of the threshold. And as I mentioned, they use an entire barangay. So individually, you will not satisfy the threshold for the anti-money laundering. I'm not sure if they can do like a collective, let's say, for the entire barangay. But imagine, bringing an entire barangay to a court and prosecuting them. Most likely, I would be retired before they even get to the first step in terms of prosecution.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Paul. Another question is about password management from Ed. Would you recommend the use of password vaults, password managers that can autofill logins in web browsers or mobile apps?
I would answer you from a professional and a personal manner. Professionally, yes, I would encourage you to use those password vault, at least to make it easier for you to manage your so many password and your so many accounts. But on the personal side, I would not recommend that you do auto login. Let's give our fingers some work and also our brains. And I mean, in terms of trying to remember some things, because the danger there is if your password vault can get compromised, then you just automatically log into your account, and most likely that would be including some of their financial account. Try to put what we usually refer to them as an air gap. That try to put an extra step, an extra manual step in term when we're doing security. I know people put in a lot of weight in terms of automation, but when it comes to security, sometimes automation can work against you.
Oh, okay. So not really so 100% advisable. So we still have, I think, do our own safekeeping of passwords and other secrets. Okay. And then you mentioned, Paul, I think sometimes we try to use, or some people would try to use the Wi-Fi of our neighbors, even though, well, even doesn't happen so often. But I'm just curious if when I do, for example, when I do that, would they know or discover my login name or password, or can they track me when I?
If you use a login name that is meaning identifiable, if you use your name, let's say if I use Roland Oscuro as my username, it would appear actually in their Wi-Fi. They'll be able to know that you are nangangapit Wi-Fi. But they will not be able to get your data or your password. Chances
Oh,
are they would just change their password to deter you from connecting to their Wi-Fi.
okay. Because even in Singapore, you can see your options include your neighbor's
But
Wi-Fi.
if they have malicious intent, they can do it. But meaning from a regular functioning Wi-Fi router, they will not be able to get your information. But if they have like malicious intent and maybe some cyber criminals this is how the cyber criminals are doing it in the mall. They would set up a mini router and publish it as, let's say, a Louis Vuitton pre Wi-Fi or guest Wi-Fi or a
Mm,
Coach pre
mm.
Wi-Fi, and encourage you to connect. But when you connect, they are already harvesting or collecting information about you, so they can like activate like keylogger monitoring, wherein they would be able to capture every keystroke that you make. Hopefully, your neighbor will not do that to you.
Okay. I hope so. I hope they won't. But no, we have our own Wi-Fi accesses as well. So yes. Um, Recently there is this wire card scam or issue. How does that relate to cybersecurity? Or because now we're so afraid
Um,
to pay online or using those the swap cards so that we pay and then in the end it might be the wire card
yeah.
problem.
Actually, Wirecard, that is their business. They're like a payment. I forgot the term. They're a payment processor. Meaning, if you like buy something on a merchant and retailer, they're the one who process it. Let's say for your bank or for your credit card.
Mm-mm.
Actually, the scandal that happened in Wirecard does not have anything to do with their technical business. Actually, it's more of an accounting fraud. And unfortunately, two Philippine banks were dragged into these scandals because the Wirecard, Germany, which is the head office, represented to their external auditor that they have money that they have placed in two of the top three banks in the Philippines, amounting to like $2.1 billion, if I remember it right. And they were presenting to the auditor some physical document allegedly coming from these two banks with a signature from bank's officer. But the two banks have already issued statement disclaiming that those documents are authentic. Basically, they're saying that those are fraudulent documents, and it was signed, unfortunately, by rogue employees, meaning employees who tried to make money by charging a fee for their signature. The signature was authentic, at least for that officer, but apparently that those two officers also forged some signature of other officers in the bank that are required to sign on the document. So they have already debunk the authenticity of this document and claim that they are fraud. So there's nothing technology. There's no technology involved. It's your traditional man-made fraud. So no technology there other than the pen that they use to sign and forge the signature. The other technology used was most likely to scan it as an image and send it to Germany to be presented to the auditor. Then there was a phone-in question yesterday during the practice run. So we'll do a little throwback, and this was actually with regards to Bangladesh cyber heist,
Mm.
which is maybe still of interest to you guys. Just to give you background, the Bangladesh cyber heist actually happened in February 2016. It happened in a 2-day, well, technically a 3-day period. It started actually on February 4, wherein 35 fraudulent transactions was issued by hacker by a SWIFT network. giving instruction to transfer money that belongs to the Bangladesh government that was being kept in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. In case some people in the audience are not familiar with SWIFT, SWIFT is actually a consortium, a close private consortium being used by the bank to provide instruction among bank members in terms of transferring money, facilitating transfer of money, facilitating release of money. Let's say our bank have money kept in the Federal Reserve of New York, and I need to pay another bank. I can give instruction authorizing Federal Reserve to send or transfer our money being kept in their bank to another bank. So that is the function of SWIFT. So there were 35 fraudulent transactions that were issued, supposedly coming from Bangladesh. And the target was actually to transfer 1 billion US dollars out of the Federal Reserve to various target banks. Fortunate for Bangladesh, only 5 out of the 35 transactions were successful, amounting to 101 million US dollars. And they were able to trace 20 million out of that 101 was actually traced to Sri Lanka. And all of the monies that were transferred to Sri Lanka was actually recovered by the Bangladesh government. Again, unfortunately, the Philippines was dragged into this because 81 million of those out of the 101 that were successful were actually traced to the Philippines, to a Philippine bank, which I won't mention anymore. I'm sure you know the bank. It was traced to the Philippines. And out of that 81 million, as of today, only 18 million have been recovered. And based on, I guess, what you've read in the news, the rest of the money were, lost in the casino, wherein it was no longer traceable. So the question is, how were they able to do this? How were they able to execute? It was widely believed that the hacker had inside help, that someone facilitated the installation of a malware or software that allows the cyber criminal to gather credentials, gather information in terms of how Bangladesh does their business, how they do their transactions, and also able to steal their SWIFT credentials. Basically, in layman's terms, they were able to steal the ID and the password of the person who is authorized to give instruction for money to be transferred or money to be moved. It was done February 4. Part of the hack that the cyber criminal did is it disabled a printer or the SWIFT printer. Because every time you do a transaction on SWIFT, it will automatically print a physical record of that transaction. And this is actually supposed to be reviewed by a checker to validate, authenticate, and authorize the transaction. But that part of what the hacker did was disable that printer. And the printer was disabled and not working for the entire day of February 5, which is already a Friday. And they tried to make it work. I think somehow they made it work February 6, which is already a Saturday. But at that time, the rest of the world is already closed. So Bangladesh was practically trying to contact the Bank of New York, but nobody is answering because they're trying to stop the transaction. But at the same time, the Federal Reserve of New York claimed that they were also trying to contact Bangladesh the moment they received the transaction to validate the authenticity of the transaction. But I think there was a holiday in Bangladesh during that 4 and 5, February 4 and 5. I tried to search in the internet. I can no longer find what holiday it was. But in the hearing, I remember it was a holiday in Singapore. In Bangladesh at that time. That's why it contributed to the delay. So it wasn't a hacker that did it from outside. It was a hacker who has inside help. Most likely, they were able to convince someone, to receive money to do something for them or to provide them with information. there was a lot of stories where about the weakness in terms of the defenses of the Bangladesh central bank. I have a well, in my personal opinion, that might be true, because apparently part of the story, the head of the information technology of that Bangladesh bank was claiming that they were already in talks with a cybersecurity, an American cybersecurity company, to provide them services and to help them secure the bank. But the excuse given was that they had some like internal process issue, so the project was delayed, and it was only approved after the heist have already happened. So they've already lost more than 70 million US dollars. So that's how it happened. So it's some an inside job, partly an inside job, that allowed hacker to install something, and still know how they process things and steal information, so they were able to do the transaction. You know, the only reason why they were not able to consummate the other transaction, the 30 transaction, there was one transaction that amounted to like 900 million. The only reason why it did not push through is because the hacker made a wrong spelling. So in the foundation, instead of foundation, they type it as FANDATION. So foundation. So there's a lesson to be learned here. So when you're studying, pay attention to spelling. So so you listen very carefully. Um, so 900 million was saved because of that mistake. If not, then Bangladesh could have lost more. So that's the story behind the Bangladesh cyber heist. So that's our throwback.
So spelling po ang key. We still have a few questions.
Yeah.
We can just respond like quickly and briefly. So from Attorney Ranveer, one question: how should one respond if one's website has been hacked or disabled, and the hackers demand ransom to recover the website? So what can
I'm obligated to tell you not to pay ransom, because it's illegal to pay ransom. I'm not sure about the law in Singapore, if you can be penalized if you pay ransom. What I can tell you is, you need to be prepared for these things. In our security practice, there's already a motto that we have already accepted. We are defending against 100,000 attacks, and we need to be right 100,000 times. The attackers needs to be right only once.
one?
So we need to prepare. We need to prepare for that one lucky cyber criminal, and the only way we can prepare for that is, to be prepared in terms of responding, by making sure I have proper backup. I have physical backup. I have a backup site. If I'm running a website, better make sure you have an alternative, site that you can turn to if, let's say, your primary website goes down, and you have a physical backup of your data. If you notice, recently Twitter was very much in the news. Twitter is a very high technology-driven company, but they were hacked. Twitter account of prominent people were hacked and were used to perpetrate a cyber scam wherein people asked for donation and people, responded because these are famous people. And that's a very technology driven company. So imagine, me running a small website. So I need to be prepared. I need to accept that eventually it will happen. So I need to be prepared for that, because there's no such thing as 100% security. Unfortunately. So you need to do backup, please.
Yes, thank you po. A quick question. The password manager question from Raquel. Where do we get that? Where can we get that password manager? Is that like an app?
There are apps actually available for password vaulting. Just make sure that you validate and authenticate the source. Unfortunately, if you're using an Android phone, the Android Play Store, I mean, they're not very strict in terms of vetting the application or app that is being introduced in their Play Store. So there's been a lot of proven instances wherein some of the app being introduced or being offered, most of them for free in that Play Store, actually contain malicious code. So please try to get one. Maybe invest on someone that is at least commercially known, if you can. But if you still need to use free app, well, try to review. Try to read the review and the feedback on those apps.
Okay. So you need to do a bit of due diligence on the kind of app.
Yes.
Yes, Paul. Yes, Paul. What from Dessa? What step should I take if my email has been pwned? Password or
It will, yeah, change your password. Try to read where it could have been possibly breached. Chances are you subscribe to a service that is listed in there. So try to go back to that website. If you can delete your account, delete your account if you don't need to, that website service anymore. But if you still need it, please change your password immediately. And do not change it with any of your current password. Try to use a really new password and maybe a longer password, harder to guess password. Then go back again to that website and type in again your email address and find out if you're still vulnerable.
okay. So change the password to something that's more difficult to hack. Yeah. And there's one question from Ed. He's sharing his experience. He said that the Philippine bank staff wrote to him about his annual insurance renewal, but she used her personal Gmail address, although her bank email address is also in the CC and other names. When Ed asked why did she do that, use the Gmail, she said she was working from home and so use their personal email accounts. So is that allowed by banks? Is it legal?
Actually, they are not allowed. In our bank, we are not allowing people to use their personal email for official correspondence. But I would understand that there are some banks that were, caught off guard in terms of, having a work from home setup, and some of them may have allowed their staff, especially those that are required to communicate to existing customer, to use personal email. But I would suggest if there's an official email address that is part of that correspondence, maybe reply only to the official address and take out the Gmail address.
Okay. Okay. So Ed, if you heard that, respond only to the official email address para lang within the bank's environment.
Yeah, within the bank's environment. That's correct.
A few more quick questions po bago tayo dahil medyo late na tayo. Quick questions. Are smartphones more vulnerable to cybercriminal attacks than laptops? Oh, another question. Is there a risk with the use of public Wi-Fi? So yun po. Two questions we have.
Okay. On the smartphone and the laptop, well, you'll be surprised. The smartphone is, more powerful than the laptops now. So actually, they're pretty much the same. Before we sort of have this thinking na, it's because it's in a cellular network, so it's safer. But unfortunately, with your smartphone, you're also doing your internet browsing, you're doing your email, the same thing that you're doing in a laptop. Yes, the smartphone might be more vulnerable because it might not have your usual protection that is present in your laptop. But if you're using like cloud type of services for your email, those protection can be migrated to the cloud environment, so you would be protected the same. But again, we tend to have more bad habits with our phone than our computers, because we tend to think that our computers have more information, but you might be mistaken. At the moment, it seems that we have more of our personal information in our phone. And I'm willing to guess that if you lose your laptop, you might suffer for 1 or 2 days. But if you lose your cell phone, you won't be able to sleep for a week because you have more information, more personal, more critical information that you save on your smartphone. Then the other question, ano na nga po uli yun? What
Ano
was
po,
that
public
question again?
Wi-Fi. What are the risks?
Public Wi-Fi, yes. Oh, for public Wi-Fi, if you're just doing regular browsing, you're just checking out kung nasa where your boyfriend is based on the posting niya sa
The wi-
Facebook niya, or where your barkada is based on their posting. Yes, you might use it. But if you're going to be doing your online banking, you're going to pay up your insurance or pay up your loans, please try to do it in a secured Wi-Fi environment. And if you're mangingi Wi-Fi ka o makiki Wi-Fi ka, let's say in a store, maybe try to ask the store for their official Wi-Fi. Don't just stand outside and hope that you are connecting to the right store Wi-Fi, no? Because a lot of bad guys are out there. They know that we are now very dependent on online buying our stuff, buying our supermarket. We're practically doing everything online right now. So to them, that's just more of you to be taken advantage of. So you really need to be wise and you really need to be careful when you do financial stuff online.
Okay. I think that's for the last question as far as I'm checking our Yahoo, our chat, and WhatsApp. I think that's the last question we have. Everyone seems to be happy. So key is be careful with the password, make it more difficult. If it's a public Wi-Fi, ano lang, siguro mga public information siguro is that not banking transactions on a public Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yun lang po. So, thank you so much. Is any last word from you, Mr. Roland?
Yeah, by the way, today in the news, there's one security company that's claiming that 235 million user profile in TikTok have been compromised.
Wow.
So if you're a big TikTok user or a big Instagram user or a big YouTube user, and if you have accounts in those social media platforms, I would recommend to change your password immediately. Because a security company is claiming that 235 million accounts in those platforms have been compromised. So I would like to encourage everyone to be careful. Though, if you are careful with this COVID-19, please be extra careful also with your online activities. There's a lot of bad guys out there who would like to take advantage of this current situation while we are distracted by this pandemic. So please be very extra careful. And I would like to thank the Bayanihan, Philippine Bayanihan of Singapore for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity to give you this talk and to share these tips on how we can avoid being victimized by the cyber criminal and by this cyber fraud. And I would like also to thank our Christy, our branch manager in Singapore, for facilitating this event or this opportunity for me to share my experience and my knowledge. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Po. Thank you very much from our side as well. And we have learned so many things. So now may I just call on Christy to say some closing remarks. Christy, please take the floor.
Oh, thank you, Minnie. To our participants in the Zoom and to our friends and family back home, the friends on Facebook, good evening po and mabuhay. Thank you again, Roland, Mr. Roland Oscuro. We know this is very, very late in the Philippines. For Singapore, this is a standard working time for us. But for you back home, this is very, very late. So we're really grateful, sincerely grateful for your time. And of course, for the very insightful I'm echoing what I have read from the Facebook messages. This has been an eye-opener for them, and it's very insightful, and really it's very timely. It's actually up to date. And as Mr. Roland have shared, while we're watching this, you may opt to change your password now. And if I may go back a little with what Mr. Roland have shared, if we have forgot a lot, you just remember rest, or you post first before you reply to anything. You rest is when they request info, and usually it's enticed with emotion. You check with the spelling and think before you click. So pakitandaan po natin yon. We rest and make a better password. Nasagutan nyo ba yung tatlo doon? O yun lang ang natandaan ko eh, si Sherry Hill, of course, Between Walang Ningning, natandaan nyo ba siya? Si Lisa Soberano, My X and Y's. So matatandaan nyo sila. That's very, 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 very informative for us, and very useful for me also. And of course, check if your email have been pawned. So again, this is a very good interaction and very informative. Maraming salamat. But before that, we have to say thank you to our friends who have been helping us to disseminate the web or the invites, because otherwise we cannot call this a success pag tayo-tayo lang mag-uusap dito. So thank you again for helping us to share the invite. Of course, we have the Philippine Embassy Singapore, led by His Excellency Ambassador Joseph Yap, and the FAST, FAUS, CDE, Miss Lynn is always there. These are big groups of Filipinos in Singapore. BNG, Rata J, the Lucky Plaza Ladies Group, hello po, nandyan kayo lagi. And Ateneo LSE, Ed, I saw you there also. UP Alumni Association, we saw you in the Facebook. FLPH, Rex and Richard, thank you for sharing all the time. This is a big group of Filipino professionals and into financial literacy as well. Netphil, I saw you there. I saw the UPLB DLS Sigma Rho team. Thank you for watching. Of course, Miss Cecil Regalario. I hope I said your surname correctly. And the whole IT team is with you. I saw their names here. And of course, thank you, Miss Tess Sebastian, the head of PNB International Banking Group, for bringing all the International Banking Group team in the Facebook together with the Mindanao team. So marami kang fans na nandito sa Facebook Live. You can review later, Roland. So thank you for supporting us and joining us, and we hope we learn a lot. So on behalf of Philippine Bayanihan Society and my fellow directors, magandang gabi po. Back to you, Minnie.
Hi, hi. Hello po. Thank you so much po. Medyo, I think we're having some technical issues. We are still in the learning process of our sort of, we're new to this webinar technology. We're just trying to be, we're just trying to be just as millennial as most of our friends are. Yun lang po what we're having today. I hope you have learned so much about cybersecurity. Basta ako lang ko, I will need to change my password na because they've been the same password for donkey years. So I think that's one of the things that I should be doing. Thank you po, Sir Roland, for that. Mag-isip ako ng mga phrases para lang mahirapan ng mga hackers. So anyway, so before we end, we'd like to share with everyone that we have this giving for any donations that our friends, supporters, and partners would like to do. Please, you can go to www.giving.sg/PBSS. So that is for donations to the society, which is a non-profit, non-commercial institution. So we rely so much on donations. Also, we are having the next Bayanihan lecture, but before that, there was a slide. Please like our Facebook page. So that is facebook.com/Bayanihan Society SG/. So please tick the OK sign there and like So we will have many, many viewers, and hope many will benefit from all these webinars. Also, we have a big lecture on August 30. We've got this Bayanihan lecture. This will only be the second time we're holding it. The first time was last year. Second time is next year. Second time will be this month, sorry, August 30. And our guest speaker is Ambassador Mindak Kalakian Cruz, who was based in Singapore a few years back. So she will be speaking to us, speaking to our Bayanihan lecture, August 30, Sunday, that's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. So please don't forget to register. Click and register at what you can see on the screen and on our Facebook. So please go there. And I think anything else that we need to say so that everyone, before you can go back and have a nice sleep or a nice supper. So thank you so much. So that's it, friends. I hope we learned something new. I know I did. And this is Minnie Lau on behalf of the board and staff of the Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore. I say thank you for joining us tonight. Good night. Take care. Keep safe. Good night, po. Cheers.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Thank you, Roland.